Oh, we're here, guys. I'm just having tech difficulty. That's all. Here we go. Now here it is. Wait, one more. Okay, here we go. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's J Cal. It's Chance Profit. This is Sessions with J Cal. We're here to just talk some good old fashioned wrestling, good old NWA style wrestling from yesteryear, and we're catch up to see what Chance been doing lately. But first of all, Chance, welcome to the show, man. How you been?
Been good, other than the fact that like everybody in my house is sick, other than me, and that's like bizarre world. If someone catches something, I'm usually the first one to get it.
Now, how the turntables have churned.
Yeah, wiki, wiki, wiki.
That's right. Well, I hope everyone is feeling better soon. Hopefully, just the regular stuff like the common cold and flu and stuff.
Yeah, nothing pandemic wise, thankfully. So it's just kids being kids and kids eating boogers. So
It's funny, Chance, when we started doing these things, when you started doing these things, when I first learned of you. Now, I had a little one, and you were a single guy. You weren't married. You didn't have kids, and the evolution of Chance Profit from pro wrestler to proud papa. I mean, what a journey you've been on.
yeah, it's crazy. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but literally, I never would have found myself canceling a booking for. I never thought that I'd ever be canceling a booking for. Well, my whole entire family's sick, and I had to do that this weekend. That was a first.
Ooh,
So,
that's got to hurt just a little bit, right?
in the pocket and in the pride department, but it's okay.
So, of course, like as much as I love talking about you and your family, we are here to talk about some wrestling,
Wrestling.
specifically the NWA, because you spent such a long time of the NWA. I even referred to you as one of the pillars, and the reason why I did that is because at one point, I know when for at least for me, the NWA was always kind of aloof. When Jim Crockett Promotions and New Japan Pro Wrestling had left the NWA, there was this obviously this a lack of awareness, I would say. And we all find out later that Dennis Corluzzo is still promoting the NWA.
Mhm.
Joe Price is still promoting the NWA. And the NWA brand is growing, and there's lots of other promotions out there. But as someone who lived in Southern California, I didn't find this out till much later. But and when I did, there were several guys in place who were already kind of doing big things. One of them was Drew Onyx, somebody who was the North American champion, had held the British Commonwealth champion a handful of times. There was you, of course, who was the national champion when I came in to start following this modern era of the NWA. And then a handful of other guys like Damian Wayne and I kind of always looked at you guys as the pillars that held that NWA together, along with the likes of Adam Pierce, because it just seemed like you guys were the ones that were getting out there, putting the name out there, putting the respect the NWA deserved, and making sure that the fans were well aware, like, hey, this NWA still exists, man. It's still here. Tell me about those early days. Like, I said 2005, but you corrected me, said 2001. Let's talk about that first few years of your career in the NWA.
So that first experience was rough. I alluded to it on Twitter. Um, there was somebody said, "Hey," and I was like fresh. It was 2001, so I started in '99. Um, and the first literal chance that I had to be on a NWA show, air quotes, um, even though like I mean it was legit. It was tied to the NWA, tied to the lineage. But the first time I was there, I had my payday stolen from me. I think I worked two or three times that night. I can't remember because someone no showed, and another person was like, "Hey, you're kind of a hometown guy. Would you be willing to go out there again?" I'm like, "Sure." Young and dumb. I'm on the NWA like two, three times tonight. And then the guy like literally walked off with myself, my pay, and my trainer's pay. And
Ouch.
yeah, it was rough. But it wasn't the promoter. It was just another guy that we know who's it. It's just weird the paths that we all take. But
You ever run into him again after that?
yeah, actually, we're like, aside from wrestling, like I'm a pastor, and then he's a pastor too, so it's ultra weird. Ultra weird. It's like, okay, you literally like flip flopped on that one,
Did
or just
did he ever make good with the money?
nope.
You gotta tell him there's some interest owed on that.
Oh man, if there's some interest, I might be back in the NWA if we tied all that money, because it was a huge payday if it was tied to the NWA.
Right.
But like when we broke in, like from that day, the current the current president, I can't remember who actually was president. It may have been Jim Miller.
Sounds right.
Right about that time, and then Richard Arpin started using me, and one of his associate members, Kenny McCoy, started using me as a regular, and that caused a whole big fuzz, just stupid stuff. I'm like, I'm still technically working for you, but he was mad because I was working for NWA Bluegrass more than him. I'm like, well, he's running more than you, and he's actually putting me with names. So,
I see, and that's another promotion like man gets no love, right? Because Bluegrass, I mean, they were bringing in guys. I think Al Snow is a regular for them. I think they would bring in Billy Gunn quite regularly too, and it's like they don't get the credit that they deserve at a time when the NWA needed stars to kind of to help be recognized. Nobody gave them any credit whatsoever.
One of the last cards we promoted, because I was tied to their media, like doing their graphic design and doing a lot of web work for them on the outside. But one of the last cards we promoted was me versus Nigel McGuinness on the undercard of Samoa Joe versus Low-Ki.
Wow!
And it was a great promotion, a great card. But man, they I'm trying to think who all. I mean, they had Pierce there a couple of times. They had Kid Cash. Nigel was there a couple of times. It was we had a Japanese contingent in with Brent Albright, I believe.
Wow!
And like Kenny did everything he could to promote. Of course, he was one of the boys too, so he knew what he wanted out of a promotion and what he wanted. And I don't know if you can hear that upstairs, but just disavow any of that craziness going on and thumping.
I can't hear it, but again, you're a father, so I can't blame you, man. I'm just lucky my little ones are preoccupied with YouTube right now. Just for giggles, I pulled up the card for NWA Bluegrass Free Genesis, and I mean, you're wrestling Davey Richards on that card.
Yeah.
You had let's see, Tony Kozina and BJ Whitmer on the card. Sean Tempers. I mean, and that was a semi-regular thing for them. It wasn't like that was a one-off. They would continuously bring in guys with, some star power to it. So that's another deep dive someone's got to get into on NWA Bluegrass and all the stuff they did for the NWA back in the day.
Yeah, they really the old adage is you have to spend money to make money, and he invested and he made returns on it because he promoted so well. Not everybody did that. I guarantee David Marquez could tell you a whole list of issues. Oh man, it was just it was a weird beast. Weird beast.
Let's talk some more about these issues, because this is what people want to hear about. I mean, we want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Like, there's a lot of great things that happen in your career. You continue to happen. Don't let me sell you short. I know the balls are still rolling in your court, so to speak. But there was a lot of history that happened. That Chance Provid's history is synonymous with the National Wrestling Alliance history. I mean, there was the ankle injury that took the national championship away from you. There was, reclaiming that national championship. There was, we got to talk about the NWA house in San Bernardino, even if just for a few minutes. There's so much stuff, right?
There was if we talk about the NWA house, I hope there's a statute of limitations on things because there was some crazy stuff. Um,
Who
so
were you there with? Because I know there was a lot of the Australian boys that came and went
yeah,
from that house. Who did you stay with when you were there?
me, it was me, David Wallace, which is Wooly, and then
Wooly.
Damian Slater, and Peter MacArthur. I think no, not MacArthur. I'm trying to think of
McGavin?
Peter. Maybe it was Bobby Marshall was his
Oh
gimmick
yeah,
name.
bad boy, Bobby
Bad
Marshall.
boy Bobby Marshall. We actually got to work on a EWF card. It was fun, and I was super ultra babyface, sans face paint, just fired up West Virginia boy out in Cali having fun. Um, Man, we had some fun times. We had some crazy times. I never knew that a plastic coat hanger, could be such a dangerous weapon. But those guys, I literally like. I think it was the first night that I got in there. Um, they were whipping those across like they were boomerangs and just like trying to nail each other while they were having video phone conferences. Like because this, I'm trying to think what year that was.
Had to have been like 2006, 2007.
I think 2007 because it was prior to my ankle um, getting shattered. Yeah, that was fun. We were in the middle of where Rocky Romero was there, um, left over from the dojo.
Yeah,
And he was helping us out. And he was also in contract negotiations with New Japan and I think All Japan. He took us out. We were all celebrating, and I was basically driving like all the Australian boys around. And let's just say he gave us money. I was the DD, so nothing happened with me. But we were at Denny's afterwards, and they used every bit of the money he got like I don't know how much food, but all the food ended up on the table. I apologized profusely to the waitress and tried to give her a tip, and she said, "Oh no, honey, you're taking them home. You keep this money." So those guys were awesome, but man, that was culture shock for me.
yeah, for sure. Those guys like to drink.
Yeah, they're crazy, but like literally. And then Wally showed up after I ended up going back to West Virginia. Wally showed up because he was doing holiday all around the United States, and literally he's like, "Hey mate, I've never been to a circus." I was like, "Well, Ringling Brothers is going to be in town." He made sure to get a bus ride up to where I was, and we went and watched Ringling Brothers with the girl that I was dating at the time. And she's like, "Who is this guy again?" And I told her, and she just like glared the whole time because she heard the stories.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, but fun
Amazing
times.
times.
Yes.
That's the kind of stuff you can write a book about, and no one will believe you either. So you
Oh
can go
no.
ahead and just make stuff up at that point because who's going to tell you that you were wrong?
It all sounds like fiction anyway. And when I tell I've got a school, and when I tell my students stuff that we did back then,
Yeah,
and stuff that I was a part of, they're like, "That really happened there?" I was like, "Yeah, you guys have it easy. You're fine."
don't worry about it. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So, how did we go from training in West Virginia, getting your work boots in, getting those early matches in late 1999, early 2000, to getting to San Bernardino in the house of the NWA? What propelled you there? How did you get to that point?
I think it was the 50th, or it was one of the 50-year anniversaries that they held in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and they ended up Marquez and Trowbridge was there. I think Trowbridge was still just legal counsel,
Yeah,
um, but David. I can't call him Dave. I'll get in trouble. Um, which I do. No one calls him Dave, and every time I see him, I'm like, "Hello, Dave." Um, but they were there, and Joe Price was there. Like all the members were there. at the time, Mike Porter and everybody. There's a story there, um, but too many stories. But thankfully some of them will never see the light of day. Um, but I wrestled the first night of that anniversary show. Wrestled JT Wolfen.
Wolfen.
JT Wolf, yeah, the North American champion, because his opponent didn't show. I wrestled him, and then the next night I wrestled Trick Nasty, who was a part of NWA Tri-State, and I think we did a belt trade there. But after doing the deal, and I think there was a battle royal I was a part of too. So I wrestled like 3 times in 2 days, and it was fun, really, really good fun. And I was like, if I'm going to get an opportunity to showcase myself to all the members, then I'm going to do it. And just so happened I got to, and they asked me to come out to the San Bernardino house. Of course, I didn't know that the split was going on with New Japan, because I was like, yes. The minute they said come out, I was like, yes. But I went out, and they treated me great. And I just kept on going. When I came back from California, they were a part of the NWA was getting in with Greg Price and the NWA Legends Fest in Charlotte.
Yeah.
And they've already decided to put me over for the national championship against Corey Williams at NWA Bluegrass. And then when they wanted to have a defense of the national title in Charlotte, David presented me with the new belt, which was the old belt that Tully had. They recast it. Man, this is a whole lot. Just kind of flitting back. And then this was a good story, so that's why I'm stuck on this. I may have gone completely off topic, but
no, let's just keep going, baby. That's what this is all about. Let's just talk about these stories.
So Ed Schumann's there, and David looks at me, and he's like, it was an old tradition for the champions, whenever a new belt was cast or a new belt was made, we give the champions the old one. Ed Schumann looked at him sideways and was like, "We don't do that anymore." Da, 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 and just all gruff, and David said, "No, he's earned it. He's made lots of towns, and he's put himself out there, and he's put our name out there. So he rewarded it. I still have that belt. That actually became the NWA dog, the first incarnation of the NWA dog belt. So he gave me that, and then they just let me run with it. Like, NWA was so, the members were so loose, like you were talking about. It was just so kind of like everything was in limbo, but there were 3 letters holding everything together.
Right.
But like, I don't know, man. Like back then, and Damien can tell you, he can attest to it. We would get permission to run with the belt and book it in all these territories, but half the time it wouldn't be in an NWA promotion, because the outlaw promoters were more fans of the NWA than the NWA promoters were.
That's so telling, bro. Like, sorry, I just turned into a mark there for a minute, but yeah. I mean, you think about it, and how many times did you see the 10 pounds of gold or the national championship or the North American title, or heck, even the British Commonwealth title, all those belts being defended outside of NWA promotions. And it's like, hey man, sorry, all we can do is a hot dog and a handshake to get you here.
Exactly.
And like, it's so wild. Like, you put all that effort and energy to have those 3 letters attached to your wrestling promotion, and then you don't even book the guys who are holding the belts. It's just, that's so wild to me. It's such a foreign, unbelievable idea, but that's what it was.
Yeah. And it was like, they only had to book like a board controlled title. I don't know how many times, like maybe 4 times a year, in order to keep their good standing and pay their dues and whatnot.
They didn't even do that.
No.
Go and look. I mean,
that's another reason why all these associates came up, because like I took over the website duties from Shane Kidder after a while. So and I would get all the crazy emails, and I was just like, every time I would open my email, my eyes would get super huge. I'm like, this is what's going on. Oh, we've got a new associate member coming in because technically it's still a insert NWA promoter. Um, it's technically still his show since they're running under him, so they would book the champions. So they would have all these all these associate members that would fulfill their obligations, so they could keep doing whatever the heck they wanted to. And I was just like, you're really just in this to use the insurance, guys. Please stop.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. And that insurance became a big point of contention later down the road. But
Yeah.
well, maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we won't. But more about Chance Profit, more about that national championship. Uh, you changed your look very significantly. Like I remember the flashes of the Dark Child early on in your career, but for the most part, you had that really, the face that I'm looking at right now, the boyish good
Yeah.
looks, the young man, the uh, gosh, that the word
It
I'm
got me
looking
heat
for is
with
like,
George South when I
yeah.
started painting my face.
Well, I was like, you're like a young Tommy Rich. You're like, the girls thought you were good looking. You
Yeah.
had the boyish good looks, the boyish charm. Next thing you know, you're covering that all up in face paint. What was the inspiration for that? Because I know it wasn't the traditional like I wanted to be like Sting. I don't think that's what it was with you, right?
No, not at all. So when I first started wrestling, I wanted to do face paint, and it was just a big part of me. Like, if you want to know some weird history about Chance Profit, uh, before I started professional wrestling, I was involved in drama teams at my local church, and I always got. I say it in wrestling terms. I always got booked to be the devil. Um,
All right.
so I always played the devil in all these dramas and stuff. So I would do my face paint and I would do it all twisted and crazy looking. So when I started getting these bookings with NWA and they wanted to put me as a board controlled title member, they're like, we need you to be a clean cut baby face. And with this face paint, you kind of need to take that off there so we can run with it. And I'm like, but my gimmick's over. It gets over. Like, yeah, but we need you to be a banner waving baby face, kind of like Tommy Rich, kind of like your Terry Taylors.
Right.
Uh, and that's all they kept saying. I was like, sure, fine, whatever. Which I shouldn't have, but it played into the story, made it a whole lot more interesting later on. So then, flash forward, I have to drop the title or vacate the title because I get my leg shattered in a title defense in Mount Hope, West Virginia, off of a flying friggin' forearm. Because people don't. Anyway, I'll get stuck on that one. I get stuck on that one because at the time they were getting ready to put me in a program with Danielson, they were going to hotshot the world title on him after they did the tournament, and we started the angle down in Charlotte. He was beating the crap out of Sean Denny, and I ran in and saved him. And then all of a sudden, Danielson goes down with a fractured orbital with Morishima. And then no sooner as he goes down, I get the ankle injury. And I'm just like, crap, this is just ridiculous. So Cookie Cutter Babyface comes back. Like, I've got some type of mutant healing factor. I shattered my leg in 7 places, dislocated the tib. They put me back together, put 7 screws in a plate in there, and then 6 months later, after 2 months, they've already cleared me to go ahead and hit the weights. After 6 months, but an initial prognosis, the doctor said it'd be a year before I'd even walk. And 6 months, they cleared me. Said, you can go ahead and go back to normal activity. I'm like, do you know what my normal activity is? They said, yeah, you're good to go. You've got something weird in there, so you're good to go. Plus, it's screwed together, so it's not going to go anywhere. So I came back in 6 months' time, and I guess they didn't really factor me into things again. And I kept trying to get booked. They're like, this is the old adage, the WWE adage, creative just didn't have anything for me. Right. And they'd moved on, and I can't blame them. I mean, if someone goes down, I mean, you got to keep the ship going. So I was like, well, screw it. If no one's going to pay attention to me, I'll just start doing what I want to again. So it was about the same time that, Heath Ledger's Joker came out in The Dark Knight. And I'm not going to say that I didn't draw huge inspiration, but I did draw huge inspiration from him. And that happened, and I just kind of pushed forward and kept trying to do my own little thing, and it evolved even further to they were like, hey, we really like what you're doing with this thing. And at that time, Gunner, which is Jackson Riker, Phil Shatter, whatever you want to call him, he's getting ready to be called up to Impact, so they need to get the belt off of him. They said, hey, let's go ahead and see if you can run with this again. And I'm like, sure. But this is also, I say that and act like nothing else happened in between there. There was one person that actually went to bat for me, and that was Jaden up at Dog, NWA Dog. He's like, if they're not going to book you, I'll book you. I'll make you my champion. I'll put you with everybody coming and going. I had my first NWA Dog Championship match was against Nick Gage, Ricky Reyes, and Little Guido.
Yes.
And he was like, I'll keep putting them out there. If they won't notice you, I'll make them notice you.
And so, when you start talking about, like, again, and I have this pulled up because, of course, we're going to talk about Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators. All the guys over there, consider them friends. They come on the podcast from time to time. But, I mean, look, you were in the ring. Like you said, you won the title in a match with Nick Cage and Nunzio and Ricky Reyes. You're in the ring with Sonjay Dutt, Corey Hollis, Caleb Conley, Jason Kincaid. I mean, and that's not just in Dog, but that's elsewhere where you were defending the title as well. I mean, you're in the ring with Manu, with obviously the Maestro. Chance,
let me hit you with my Ken Kobashi chops, brother. I'm like, yes, sir, whatever you say.
It was at the time, though, man. I mean, it was kind of a big booking, and then having that title in Mountain State, and of course in the promotions you were working in West Virginia and everything else. You helped cement Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators as a promotion that people needed to pay attention to. Yeah. All the while, they kept doing their responsibility and giving you opponents that were interesting that would get people to pay attention as well. So, very symbiotic relationship that I think benefited both parties, short-term and long-term.
Very much so. Dr. Lawrence Zirconium is a very, very benevolent benefactor. He was very, very good to me. Still a good friend. I don't talk to him as much as I should, but he literally, had it not been for him, I'd say they probably would have just left me by the wayside.
But I've told Dr. Z that he needs to open up that wallet sometime soon and bring you in and bring Damien in, and that way I could come in, fly myself out there, and finally get the match that I wanted to see like 10 years ago. I told him that. So if you're watching Zirconium, Dr. Z,
he has literally tried to book us, book me back for years, I know. But every time he's had something's happened. I've been booked somewhere else. Probably had a kid or 4. But yeah,
that takes a toll though. And I know. Like, I'm laughing because I've got 3, and 3's a handful. You've got 4, and they're a lot closer in age to each other.
Yes, they are.
And being a dad is super rewarding. It's one of my best things I can do every day. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that it's always like rainbows and lollipops. Sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's really hard. And, when you're out there pursuing your passion, pursuing your dream, yes, they come first always. And sometimes that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow. Like, how do you manage, that scale of being a papa and also being a pro wrestler?
It's a very, very definitely one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And, the first clue I had, and people tell you stuff all the time. There's not very many. It's a lot better than what it used to be as far as fathers that are professional wrestlers being there for the kids. You always heard the horror stories when you were coming into it, like, oh, this is a single man's business. Don't be a father. Da 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 da. But the one that really clued me into on how hard it was Pierce, and we were coming back from I think we had to wrestle each other in Sayersville, Kentucky, maybe. Um, I'd gotten us lost after him asking if he's like, you know your way around here. I was like, yeah, man, I drive. This is like 20 minutes from where I grew up, and I got us lost. Um, um,
That's awesome.
but we were talking about kids, and he's got two of his own, and he was telling me that and I asked him, I was like, because my son Jude was very young at the time, and he said it's always the hardest once they reach the age where they can tell you daddy don't. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that sounds like it'd be hard. And boy, when that happened, oh, it was, Dad, you're going again. I was like, oh, that was it. He called it.
Yeah.
But now they're just like, oh, Dad, you leaving? Okay. Or it's, Dad, you got to go wrestle. They're trying to push me out. So, yeah.
I got the yesterday, Saturday, I got from the littlest Piper. She looks me in the eyes and she goes, "Dad, I love cuddling with you." And my heart's melting. I'm like, "Piper, I love cuddling with you too." She goes, "But you go to work." And then she scowled at me and then she walked away. I'm like, "Hey, someone's got to pay the bills. Come on,
Yeah.
cut me some slack." But yeah, it's not just pro wrestling; it's everything. But of course,
Yeah.
when you leave, you are gone for sometimes it can be a few days because transportation and everything else. So
Yeah.
of course it's got to be tough, but nevertheless, you persist, and that's something that I'm sure your kids are going to look back in years from now when they're adults and they'll be like, wow, our dad, not only was our dad a pro wrestler, but he was here. So that's really cool. That's something that's something you can be proud of, you can hang your hat on.
Yeah, they they love it. They love me being a pro wrestler. My oldest a little bit different. He's like, Dad, do I have to be one? I'm like, no. Like, you don't have to be one. This kid's super smart, even though he's going to be like 6'8". Uh, he's just super super smart, and he's like, do I have to? I was like, you don't have to do anything. I was like, you go after what you want to do.
Right.
And everyone asks me, are you going to push them into the business? No, but I won't be a hypocrite and tell them they can't.
Right.
But yeah.
And when you see him and he's going to be 6'8", you're like, man, if I just had a little bit of that size, if I just had a little bit of that.
Yeah, I would have been signed back in 08. So,
so the journey, right? The journey is kind of what we're talking about here.
yeah.
You started off, you went to the anniversary shows, which kind of opened up the doors to get into the NWA house in San Bernardino. Your workout here kind of helped you land the national championship spot. The injury derails everything.
Yeah.
Lawrence Zirconium, Jaden, the folks at Dog look at you as like, hey, this guy's a hot commodity. Let's get him back out here. Let's get him. If the NWA isn't going to do anything with him, we'll bring him in. We'll use him. And then, then the national championship it becomes available again. We were alluding to that. Phil Shatter. There was two thoughts at the time. There were thoughts that he would become the next world champion, or there were thoughts that he was going to leave for Impact. And it seemed like any one of those could have happened. Of course, he ended up going to Impact, and that created a void in the NWA. Everyone knew it was kind of coming, but again, the office called on you to fill that national title spot. What did that mean for you as a pro wrestler with them coming back with that title again? And what did it mean to you to, of course, send Shatter on his way out?
It made me feel like, okay, I've got my momentum back, and I've got the traction, and I was thankful that they still had faith in me. Because even though there was so much on the fringe in the NWA, the stuff that David and Bob were doing, like the mainline NWA stuff, and stuff that Kenny was doing in Dog, like they were really doing some great stuff and making strides and pushing forward. Obviously, by what David's done with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, you can see what would have happened had people listened. But man, it was the fact that they put that back on me. It really, I was like, okay, let's do everything we can to make sure that this run doesn't get derailed. And like, I just pushed and tried to book. They gave me the opportunity to book some shows under NWA Premier banner. which I ran with as long as I could. But being a promoter and a wrestler at the same time, not for me. Um,
Yeah, that's
uh,
tough.
yeah, you gotta. If you love it and you can multitask in that, then you're a better man than me. I don't delegate authority as much as I should, and I micromanage myself, which just makes you crazy.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but I pushed that title as far as I could and as long as I could. Had some really great wars with Damian Wayne. Had really great wars with Cahagas, which led to the relationship I developed with Howard Brody and Ring Warriors, which everyone saw where that was going or where that went. I really missed that place, but the the stuff that I got to do with that title was just awesome, and the fact that they let me go back into it and trusted me enough with it that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm sitting here looking at some of the matches that were presented to you, I mean, again, Jason Kincaid, Al Snow, Damian Wayne multiple times, Tommy Dreamer, Cahagas, Christian York. I mean, a lot of good, talented names that you
I got
shared
to
the ring with.
got to go with Colt Cabana too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
that national? That may have been yeah, that was a national title. Yeah,
It's I'm right now looking at Cage Match. That's kind of like a
yeah,
very reasonable, good resource, but it's not always 100% accurate. And I found a lot of times that they don't have a lot of, especially when it comes to the NWA. I feel like maybe I was the only one, blowing that whistle back then with the
yeah.
results. Eric Sachs and Jeff Capo and myself were like really the only guys pushing that NWA banner back in those days. So it's kind of hard to find, accurate results with, the matches that were like happened. I know some places even advertise like they'll show like, oh, this flyer had so and so versus so and so, and he left with the title, so he must have won, but no, so and so never even showed up to the event, so you
Yeah,
didn't put out the right information.
it happened
So
a lot back then.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, great talent. I mean, just a lot of solid dudes that you got to share the ring with when you were national champion. What fond memories do you have of that title run?
Um, me and Pierce got to throw fireballs in Damien's face
That's right.
while JJ was managing Pierce. That was fun. Um, JJ Dillon got to advise us on that. That was fun. Um, with Cahagas, what we did in Florida, the compliments that we got off the first night was enough for me to be like, okay, I can quit, because Dusty was in the back, and
Wow.
like we got comments that night that we had heat like he and Sullivan had, and this
Wow.
was in one of the armories that they actually like bled all over the place. So that was a huge compliment for me, just coming to a new territory and us just like going out there and going ham on each other. Um, had a lot of fun with him. Had a whole lot of fun with Cahagas. Um, I'm trying to think of who else. When me and Tommy Dreamer did the match in Remix or at Remix in Marietta, Ohio, that one was just off the charts because like and sidebar to that, before that happened, I was getting WWE tryouts and I'd actually hung out with him at catering, him and Sergeant Slaughter at catering, just like because we were just doing extra duty, so there wasn't a we were like I can't even remember the angles that we were in on. One time I almost got punked out by Batista um, because they told us to hook and I hooked, just being overzealous. Um, but got to meet Tommy, and then we got to work together. So when we got to work together, it was a whole completely different thing. He said, "I didn't know that you were that same kid that I talked to at catering," and we had a lot of fun. That man's crazy. He's really cool, but he's crazy, and he likes to do stuff that he probably shouldn't. Yeah, yeah, I was there for that one. Uh,
Our pal, and that's how weird the world of pro wrestling is. My pal Al is your pal Al,
yeah,
and that dude, I love that dude, and he knows it. But he's he literally, I met him at the 70th anniversary show for the NWA, and since then I've seen him a handful of times. But he came through California, and at that time there was just too much stuff going on in my life, and I really wanted to go to a show with him. We never hooked up. But if he ever comes back out here again, I'm taking him to Fazoli's, and I'm buying that man some pizza.
Yeah. So Al's like the ghost of good wrestling. So if he shows up, if I'm looking around at intermission and I see Al, I'm like, okay, everything's okay. Everything's going to be good. At least I'll get an honest review of what went down.
For sure.
But every time I see him, like, so first time he saw me wrestle was at 304 Wrestling in a volleyball, a beach volleyball sand pit. And that was the most horrible idea ever. I don't know if he remembers all of it. I don't think I do, because I'm pretty sure I got knocked out in the match. But yeah. I was trying to protect the guy. The guy moved out of the way, and I ate the mat, and the on button came back, like the reset button hit somewhere after 9 minutes. So yeah, a lot of craziness. But it was fun. It was fun. But if you can't remember it, is it really fun? Al probably had a better time than I did that night. But yeah, whenever he's there, it's just crazy cool. Everyone's like, I've seen him. I see him all over. I saw him on NXT. I'm like, yeah, he's more famous than most of the guys.
I've been meaning to send him a shirt, but I'm not sure where to send it to, because that way, like, it'd be free advertising everywhere he goes.
It's a vagabond.
I don't want to get too much into it, because this isn't an Al show. This is a Chance show, but there's something so romantic about the idea of just being able to get in your vehicle and drive wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do. And I mean, like, I told him, I go, man, part of me is so jealous of the life that you have.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love sleeping in my bed, but there's something very romantic about that idea of just, hey, you know what? I want to go to WrestleMania. I'm going to drive down and go to WrestleMania this year. Cool, man.
Literally.
No one's stopping me.
I'm going to sleep in my awesome van, and no one can stop me. Yeah, there is something awesome about that. Something is just like true spirit of wrestling right there.
100%.
Yeah.
But that's enough positive talk about Al. You guys can follow his podcast, Fan in a Van. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. Make sure you check that out.
Yeah.
Now back to Chance, because that's why we're all here. Is we're talking about Chance Profit and the NWA and the past, present, and future of the NWA. Because you fit in two of those roles very, very comfortably for what you did, in the past, and what you continue to do for pro wrestling these days. That national championship meant a lot, and then that title, they moved on. They put the belt on Cahagas, I mean, he's a friend of the show too. I very much enjoyed Cahagas, his work stuff. And again, at that time, I would throw his name as one of the pillars of the NWA. Of course, you guys were all a part of the event at Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators to crown a new champion, because the NWA had changed ownership. And that's the first time that, as far as I've ever followed the NWA, there was a literal ownership change of the brand. And everything changed almost overnight, where Adam Pearce, Colt Cabana left the title in Australia. All of a sudden, Bob Trowbridge is no longer the executive director. The board of directors has been dissolved. You have Fred, you have Chris, and you have Bruce, who are now in control of the NWA. How was that for you as a talent to kind of be thrusted into this weird time and space? Because again, some of the people you knew who were in the NWA were now no longer a part of that brand. And as a wrestler, you were still much involved, and I think you were still doing some of the graphics and stuff for the NWA as well, too, right?
Yeah, I was getting ready to, with everything that went down, and just, again, being privy to all the stupid emails. I say stupid because there was a lot of craziness going on.
I saw some of them.
Dude, they were just, it was so cutthroat, and everyone's just like ready to, we'll start this, we'll do this. I'm like, don't talk about it, just do it, because the
Right.
minute you say you're going to say it, you're done. Um, Someone else has already heard it, and they're going to run with your idea. Um, but that was the most chaotic yet. I mean, a lot of us were really, really, I don't want to say optimistic, but we were just like, okay, let's see where this goes. Because the original, like the membership, the board of directors, and all the guidelines and rules that they had to abide by, it was just so crazy. But it kept everything. It was supposed to keep everything in the corral,
Yeah.
but it never. There was always ones fleeing away from the herd and doing their own thing. But when Bruce and everyone just dissolved everything, it was just like, because I think we had that one show in Charlotte prior. It was supposed to be me and Damian Wayne in a street fight, and when we got there, we were told, okay, no blood, and we're like, what? No color at all. I'm like, I literally bought these pants so that I could get his blood all over him, and I'm wearing a white shirt, which never happens. Uh, but yeah, they're like, yeah, we can't do this, and this is the new director, and da 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 da. And I'm just like, hold up, this is. It was just such a weird dynamic, that because at that point we just been accustomed to writing everything out and seeing who was going to step up and try to be the next top dog.
Right.
But man, when everything went the way it went, I mean, Bruce did some good stuff.
Well, yeah, I think there's a look. I'm one of the biggest detractors of Bruce's time with the NWA, but even I can admit there was a lot of positive things that came out of his involvement with the NWA. I mean, the least of which brought the 10 pounds of gold to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we got to see a
Yeah.
lot of New Japan talent in the United States. I mean, we had not only Satoshi Kojima come here, but also Hiroshi Tenzin.
Yeah.
Rob Conway was able to do a couple of tours. A lot of NWA affiliated guys were able to get opportunities in Japan. I mean, Chase Owens,
Yeah.
he's still working for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Legit.
So I mean, he certainly came up.
If nothing else but Chase getting over there, well worth it.
Yeah.
He's definition of a good brother. But daggone it, man, it was just once we started seeing the patterns of, oh, we're going to push these guys, and at the minute, and this is just the way I was brought in, the minute that people forget about you or don't put you into the plans, you have to start spinning your wheels and get to a different territory, because otherwise you get stuck.
Right.
And that's literally where it was going, and I could see some of the patterns just being, even though it was new ground, the minute that you have to put, and I love Bruce. Never got to work for him. Had really good conversations that had nothing to do with wrestling, but I never actually really got to work for him. So I can't really say he was a bad boss. Can't say that he was good. He was just there. But then everything ends up in Billy's hands, which Billy's doing some really cool stuff. It looks so much and honors the Jim Crockett Promotions so much that, I mean, you can't really hate it. But the stuff that happened when Bruce kind of just kept going over to Japan, and everybody else just fell off to the wayside, and it's like, okay, I can see where this is going. Hopefully it continues on so the brand still survives.
Yeah.
And it was sad, but it was needed. It's what should have happened when Bob and Dave were pushing heavy and doing the casino tours and everything that they were doing. If people would have stepped out of the way for the greater good, it would have been amazing. I think so. But I mean, David's dreams never die until David lets them die. So he just found a way to put his own spin on things and make it work.
It's taken him some time, and I'm sure things would have been easier had he been able to run with that NWA name. But I mean, you can't over state what he was able to do. I mean, again, going back in those days, the early 2006, 2007, doing the small arena shows, the TV that they were producing in Hollywood was very, very top notch. Even before the NWA Hollywood, but the NWA Showcase was such a great show. Just had, and they were trying to feature a lot of the talent. I know that you never made it onto the show, but I know, like, they had Mike DiBiase, they had oh gosh. El Leon Apollo. They had Phil Shatter.
Yeah.
So I mean, they were definitely trying to get more. I mean, even Steve Madison and the Sheik, before all of that happened, they were on that show as well. So it was like they really did try to produce that show the way I think would have been great for the NWA. And a lot of that hallmark is what you see today with that show that's produced now. I mean, I'm not saying it's a shot for shot remake or anything like that, but there's still, even though Dave Marquez and David Lagana are no longer a part of NWA at this point, there's still a lot of their essence is still involved with that show. You could still see it. Another program that Dave helped out with that you happen to be a part, and it's funny because you were here in San Bernardino, which is now like 20 minutes away from where I live. You were here, you worked in the City of Industry with AWS, and they did that 60-man battle royal. I never got to see you live until I drove out to Las Vegas in 2018 and got to finally see you live in the ring at the Ring Warriors program that they filmed out at the Sam's Town Gambling Hall.
Yeah.
I coined the phrase Slams Town. Nobody paid me for it, but that was me. And
it was so good. Just printing money right there.
I'm telling you. And then the partnership with you and Funny Bone was so twisted, but worked so well. It's two very different dynamics, but like
very.
I know it's like, hey, he's got face paint, let's go. But there was more to it than that. Tell me a little bit about that tag team and why we didn't get more of it.
I wish I knew the answer of why we didn't get more of it, because like we filmed a lot that, I mean, I guess it aired out on WGN, but man, when he put us together and had me do the whole the Reverend Nelson stuff, it was just such a good stretch. And I remember the initial conversation of, hey, I want to put you, and this is Howard Brody, I want to put you with this guy named Funny Bone. I don't know if you know of him. I'm like, oh yeah, he's a friend of mine on Facebook. That, if that tells how old I am. Let me put my glasses on. So he says, he's a little bit different. He's done some stuff. I was like, I know exactly where you're going with this. So
yeah.
He's like, do you have an issue? I was like, no, he's a great talent. Actually, like we had talked back and forth, and we always wanted to work against each other. It never happened. Hopefully it'll happen through someone watching this. But he's like, I think you guys would make a really good tag team. I was like, okay, what do you want us to do? And he said, well, I'd kind of like for you guys to be like a next generation Road Warriors. Just go out there and beat the crap out of people, not really care about who wins. Professor Prophet. Thank you, Brian. But he said, I want to do this prophecy gimmick to where it plays off of your other side, which that whole discussion on that character, because it was like, okay, are you comfortable with being called a reverend? Because I know you're a real minister. I'm like, as long as it's nothing blasphemous, we're good. He's like, oh no, it's more of a shot towards current political figures. And I was just like, say no more, we're good. So we ran with that. I was doing double duty, like cutting the promos. But the stuff with Funny Bone just came super naturally. We had a good chemistry, and like we were just raw, crazy people. And one thing that we always got in trouble was not being vicious enough. And I'm like, we're not.
Yeah, you guys kind of came out there and just like killed on people. Like, what more could you have done? Did they want the spike to the eye? What do they want?
Pretty much, like without like massive uh, arterial blood spray. They wanted us just to like completely devour people and never give them an ounce of offense. And the worker in me is just like, that's not entertaining. But again, it's TV, so you have to do what you did. So after our first match, we completely changed gears and went even more violent and just had fun. And then right before everything wrapped with, I still don't even know what happened with Ring Warriors. I don't know the full story, but they put Kazarni, Sin Bodhi back in with us, and we were going to run with that. He was going to be our handler, and a handler that was a servant to the prophet and all this kind of stuff. It was going to be really, really cool. And then poof. But like Funny Bone, we still follow each other, still talk here and there, just rarely. But he was like one of my favorite tag partners of all time, and we never even got to do all that they were setting us up to do.
Yeah, I was at the tapings, and I just looked up the matches right now so I would get them right. I thought it was Cassidy Riley and Chase Stevens. I almost said Wes Briscoe, but it was Cassidy Riley. And I mean, that's a pretty good tag team in and of itself. Like, how are you going to go out there and eat those guys up? It's not like they're like rookies by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
I remember it being a great match, and I remember thinking, like, man, I would love to see more of that. And it was one of those deals where, I live in Southern California. This is not a far drive to get to Vegas. I was very happy to go see that show, and like you, I don't know why it didn't have any more staying power. I mean, yeah, WGN's a big deal, and if the deal didn't happen there, I mean, again, we look to our friend David Marquez, who produced pro wrestling, not for WGN, but for many, many other type of television stations, and it's just that seemed like such a good deal. I don't know why that didn't work.
Yeah, I think there could have been an outlet, and again, I wasn't a part of any of the office back there, so I wouldn't know exactly what happened, but I just know that it was just such good potential. I mean, you look at the list of people that was on that roster. You had Karrion Kross, you had Jeff Cobb, who was the champion for a hot minute, that switched over to Karrion Kross. You had Hammerstone. You had the I guess we would technically be in national TV. So it was Chris Bay's national introduction to a TV audience. Of course, he was there with Future Stars. And dude, they're so good out there. That was my first chance to be around those guys, and there's everybody there from Shogun to Hammerstone to Bay to Damian Drake.
Yeah,
love those guys. Love every one of them.
And you can't forget, I mean, also Eli Drake was there.
Yeah.
I mean, there was such a great list of talent. Like
L.A. Knight.
Well, now what are they calling him now? Like Dumas or something like that. I don't know, man. He's got a new name again, and I'm sure he'll get it over because he's talented. But
so when I first met him, he was Dick Rick. With Heartland.
Yeah, he was very much a champion of. I'm forgetting the talk show's host name. Someone out there knows, but a real misogynistic radio TV shows host, and he was playing that gimmick very well. I know him as Sean Ricker. I being out here in Southern California, I saw the maturation that put him. I was literally there the night that they formed the tag team with him and Brian Cage. Yeah. And they were on opposite sides of the ring, and they just got tired of their opponents, which I think one of them was Joey Ryan, and they ended up churning and just beating the crap out of those guys. So it was a fitting proposal for them. But I mean, that guy is so super talented too, and along with everyone else on that Ring Warrior show, I definitely wanted more for that. It was
Luke Hawks. Big shout out to Luke Hawks.
I love that guy. And that's the thing. You look at this roster. Oh, I love that guy. Oh, that guy's great. Oh, he's great.
Yeah.
Haggis was there. Wes Briscoe was there. Michael Tarver was there. I mean, it was
Francisco Chiazzo. The
Slambinos.
The Slambinos were over.
They were
super over. People don't understand how over they were.
I didn't get it, but Vegas
Disco was there. Disco Inferno. people hate on me and people will laugh at this. That was a bucket list for me. I got to beat up Disco Inferno. Glenn's awesome to me. I don't care what he does on elsewhere, but he was really super awesome to me. He's like, just make sure you get in there and get in tight with me. I'm like, you're okay with me just like completely laying it? He's like, yeah, man, just go for it. He wasn't supposed to do anything at that point, but he did. So everybody out there was so cool, and then it just falls apart.
And the wild thing about that too is they had that video library as well. Maybe it wasn't made for TV, but I just felt like they could have stretched that show out. They could have had the content from the past. You were the Bahamian champion, for crying out loud.
I literally beat a giant in the Bahamas.
How was that?
That was cool.
I mean, look, I've been to Jamaica, not quite the Bahamas, but I mean, just being able to travel to somewhere exotic and beautiful, and then, you get to wrestle too. How does
that? Cool story from there. Me and Cassie Riley land, and we have to do a bunch of media. And one of the main sponsors was the only cell phone company that covered the whole island of Nassau. So we go in and do some radio, and people see my face paint, and there's a Caribbean influence. So there's some voodoo attached and some other things.
Santeria.
Yeah, Santeria is involved. So a bunch of priests were calling into the radio station wanting to come down and bless me. And I said, probably won't work. Probably won't be a good idea, because what we believe in, what you believe in, what I believe in won't mesh very well. So it was interesting. Very, very interesting. I have crazy stories where Goldust was on the show. Big Van Vader was on the shows down there. Goldust actually thought I was African American. That was just, I'm one of the most Caucasian people you can ever see. I'm from redneck Logan, West Virginia. So the fact that he thought that I was African American, I was like, what? I land, and Bruce Santee down there. Hey, Chance, what's up? And he's looking around for me. I said, Chance is an African American dude. And I was like, no, this is Chance right here. That was one of the first conversations, and then like me and Dustin had to work like in 2 or 3 weeks after that at IWA East Coast promotion in West Virginia, and he was like, "No, you're really Chance." I'm like, I think I can call my wife and ask. But
I mean, she doesn't call you Chance, but I mean, still, right?
Yeah. Vader did not want to put over younger talent and was wallowing on the floor, like laying in the daggone locker room floor, basically crying, like whining. And the Booker man, Mr. Larry Brannon, he pulled rank on him, and I was like, oh gosh, something bad's going to go down. And it was like, you either do this or I just take this check right here. And he's like, no. I don't have a problem with that. And I was just like, and the thing was, though, Dustin had already politicked to where, because he saw where everything was going. And Dustin's like, hey, how about we do a tag match, and I'll get in there and I'll take all the heat, so you don't have to worry about it. And Leon can just do whatever he does, come in, do the hot tag, and everybody will be happy. So he was still complaining at that point. And finally Dustin's like, Leon, I'm taking the heat. All you're doing is playing the role of Robert Gibson. Quit crying. But so much craziness down there. When I won the Bahamian title, I wasn't even supposed to win it. Titan, I'm trying to think of what his name was.
Yeah, Titan, the giant Titan.
The giant Titan was supposed to go over, and his passport got denied at the ticket desk. So, ta-da! Bahamian champion! Yay!
Just like that, huh?
Yeah, and had really awesome matches with Beastly, aka Edward Malkin, and like that crowd down there was electric. They love pro wrestling, and you would have thought we were the biggest superstars known to man. It was probably one of the highlights of my career going down there. Didn't get to have any fun in Nassau because the island was all the roads were being rebuilt.
Oh,
So we just kind of hung out. We did have one night that everybody wanted to go to the Atlantis casino.
okay.
So we go out there, and there's like nobody out, and there's nobody at the casino. I mean, the people working there, and it's a really beautiful resort. We're looking at all these cool pillars, marble everywhere, and we're like, "Where is everybody?" And they're like, "Oh, well, pirates held us up last night at gunpoint." We're like,
Whoa.
"What?" It's like, yeah, that's why no one's here, because they don't know if they're completely off the island or what's going on, because they held them with like straight up machine guns, like something
Sure.
off of a movie. Um,
That's wild, man.
yeah.
Thankfully, you were involved.
No, I didn't do anything that night other than talk to Wes Briscoe and about how this was such a good experience. And he's like, "Yeah, I just went over to I think it was a blackjack, or maybe it was roulette." Anyway, he walked away with like $300 in 5 minutes off of like $5.
That's amazing. I'm still here. My camera just died on me, so give me just a second here
Okay.
as I'm tearing up my office here to get it ready. I'm still here. We're still talking. What have with all this stuff that happened? What's some of the memorable moments that you've had in your career? I mean, I know you're not a young chicken, and I'm not saying that to be insulting.
Not at all.
At some point, Father Time catches up to us all, and you're still out here. You're still putting in the work. How much longer do you see yourself still wrestling?
Well, I opened a school back in 2019, so I don't know how long I'll be on the ring side of things. I keep saying that, and it's just like every practice I tell the students, I'm like, "No, I'm not going to bump any. I'm just going to tell you what to do and help you with stuff." And I ended up going in there like having full blown matches with them. But I probably have a good maybe 5 to 10 years left. But I've always said that I won't be one of those guys that says they retire, because you never retire. The minute that I just feel that it's time to go, I'm just going to walk away and not have any fanfare to it, because it's better to do that than say you're going to, and then 3 days later go buy some new boots and jump back in the ring. As far as like good stuff that's happened, like stuff that I'll never forget, is everything that NWA Dog did for me, and NWA Bluegrass. The matches like with Adam Pearce, Gold Dust, which it wasn't NWA involved, but NWA led for it to happen. All the matches with Cahagas and Damian Wayne, they kind of blend together with all the chops and bloodshed and stuff. So, but like everything that we did, it was magic, and like people like bought that the NWA was still alive once they saw what we were doing.
That's why, again, the standard bearer. I mean, at one point you literally came out to the ring holding the NWA banner on a pole. I was like, he makes my point for me right there.
Literally, they were like, "Hey, we got a flag for you," and I'm like, "So I'm Hacksaw Jim Duggan now?"
No, not that flag. Not something patriotic. Just something to show that you're loyal to the brand.
Yeah, they put a lot of faith in me. So,
well, with good reason. I mean, look, here we are. We're talking about your career some 22 years after it started, and that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not for everybody. Not everyone could do what you did, what Damian Wayne did, what Cahagas did, and again, each of you carried a part of that NWA in your own way, in your own means. And I mean, that national title, the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators title, I mean, that was part of the NWA when you won it. Yeah. And, a lot of that carried weight. And so, I mean, I still have people talking like, "Hey, do you remember Chance Prophet as national champion?" Hell yeah, I do. That was a lot of fun. He was a great wrestler. I asked people, who would you like me to interview? Who would you like me to talk to? Because I want to do some more NWA from the past. There's a lot going on now, but there's this road that we're on right now was paved on the backs of many, many, many warriors who spent time, building this brand up for Billy Corgan to buy. It wasn't, if it wasn't for Chance Profit, if it wasn't for Damian Wayne, if it wasn't for Drew Onyx, if it wasn't for Cahagas, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
I always tell people that too with the 10 pounds of gold. It's like, my standard bearer for the 10 pounds of gold is Adam Pearce. You're either at his level or you're not. And there's a lot of guys who don't match up, and there's a lot of guys who have. But you don't get to Matt Cardona as your world's heavyweight champion if you didn't have Adam Pearce during those lean years. If you didn't have, and even in the really lean years, I mean, you still had Mike Rapata. If he wasn't champion then, if he wasn't carrying that title then, what do you have now?
Yeah, nothing to lean on at all.
No. So, as far as I'm concerned, your legacy is cemented with the NWA, much like my pal Kevin Frazier, the modern day hero, much like Damian Wayne, and so in my mind, you'll always be NWA. But I know that in this continuity right now, this time and place, you're not working for the NWA, but you're still active. You're still doing your own thing. How often are you wrestling? You said earlier that you had to cancel a booking, but are you still out there pretty regularly?
I try to make it a point, and I try to tell my students the same thing. And if I wanted to, I could wrestle like 3 to 5 days a week just in West Virginia. I wouldn't be able to pay the bills, but I try to branch myself out, because if you're going to be a professional wrestler, you kind of don't hang close to home.
Right.
Even if, and I'm sure that it's the same everywhere, if you're a SoCal-based wrestler, you don't want to just stay in SoCal, because then you're branded as a SoCal wrestler.
Right.
You want to be someone that travels off. That way, when you come home, you're celebrated. I do a lot in North Carolina with Revolution Wrestling Alliance. I think I probably just butchered the name. It's RWA. Julian Strauss runs it. He runs a really great company. SCWA, which hosted a lot of the stuff that me and Damian did back in the day with the NWA Dog and national title. They've started up again. So me and Damian are actually tagging on, I think, the 4th of June. Me and him are tagging against a couple of the Control Your Narrative guys. I think one of them went down with a knee injury last night, though, so it'll be fun to see who they replace him with. But it's the first time we've actually gotten to tag together.
I like that. I don't know if you remember this, and it might have been an awful idea back then, but I thought it was a really cool idea. I wanted you and Damian Wayne and Mark, I think I'm saying his name right, Mark Bravura, the Memphis Mofo. Yeah. I wanted you guys to do like a Freebird style gimmick, just because of who you guys were and the stature that at that time you guys had. I thought that would have been so much fun. But I'm glad you and Damian Wayne are teaming, because again, I love that guy too. Just like you. I mean, I look at him and what he did for the NWA in that time, and there's a lot of controversy with him, but he should have been a world champion.
Yep. He was supposed to. I was supposed to. That's something I literally cried underneath a bridge with my trainer, because stuff fell apart with stuff that was supposed to, everything that was promised, and it's just pro wrestling. But like, it would have cemented like my career. I could, if I was going to hang it up, that could have been what I hung it up off of. But man, Damian was done really dirty, really, really dirty.
I tell people, and they don't believe me, that a lot of that came because of the drama from the message board on my website. Yeah. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, no, this is legit. I'm not trying to overstate how magnanimous that website was or how important it was, but no, that's generally why they did not put the belt on them. And they're like, no, you're lying. I'm like, I'm not.
Your site had more traffic than the actual NWA website.
It did. But but if we go back in time too, like if you think about it, there could have been a time and place for both of those men to have that title, yourself included. I definitely feel Cahagas deserved that belt.
Yeah,
but
100%.
They could have done that in a different way, or transition from Cahagas to at least give Wayne something when it was promised. I mean, yeah, I'll stop about that. But
well, he's getting stuff that he deserves now.
Yeah.
And I won't tell his story because hopefully you'll have him on soon and he can tell some of the stuff.
He was on at the end of the year, but this is something that I think I want to do, a lot. I think having you guys come on and just telling the old stories. I mean, if we don't tell them, people won't know them and they'll get forgotten and go by the wayside. So this is, I think this is fun.
Yeah, he's getting, with everything he's doing with heels, that's him. He should have had this type of money back then. From respect and everything he's done with it, because I mean, he came into wrestling in his mid-30s. He should have, and he's still in better shape than most guys, myself included. And I'm 10 years, or at least 8 years his junior. And he's a beast.
Yeah.
Love the dude. I've got scars from the dude.
What a world you live in that you can say, I love that man. Look at the scar he put right here on me.
Literally.
Well, Chance, I said I wanted to keep you for an hour. I know we went a little bit over, but I do appreciate your time. In the video description, I'll have links to your pro wrestling tees and all your social medias. But is there anything else you'd like to plug that's coming up, a future show or some shows that are coming up, or even your school if someone wants to come train to be a pro wrestler?
Yeah, powerslamacademy.com. I've got some really awesome, I say kids there. I try not to do personal and business, but I invest in them. So I got some really awesome kids that are coming out of there. My pro wrestling tees, all the social, because I've got so much stuff spread out, and even my schedule. Just because I'm scattered sometimes, I'll just put the town. I'm doing some stuff for PWX out of Pennsylvania, SCWA and RWA in North Carolina. New South Wrestling out of Lexington, Kentucky is doing some amazing cards. I won't be back this month, but I will be the following month. And if anything, and just my social media, if you follow with me, that's pretty much to keep up with what I do.
Well, again, I really appreciate the time, appreciate the trip down memory lane, and nothing but my best wishes and all the best of luck on all your future projects.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. This has been real fun.
By the way, if you guys didn't know, the original logo that I'm wearing today was designed by Mr. Chance Profit. That was actually an NWA logo.
Yeah, it was.
And I said, that is too good not to be on a shirt. If they're not using it, let me have it. And you sold it to me for an undisclosed amount of money. And then when I was like, well, I need something more modern and update, this is what you came up with. Although we kind of cut the wings off for the hat, but you can see it back here in the banner.
Yeah. I'm proud of that one.
You should be.
I love it. That's one of my favorite pieces.
I love it too. All right, man. Well, again, thank you for your time, and everybody will be back Tuesday for the pre-party. Hope you join us then. Until next time, see you at the matches. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.